John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.
Eight, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, how are we doing? You can close your eyes. Does anything feel weird? Because that's what this is. You know, feeling weird is how you know you're still here. When was the last time you ate? Because all a human needs is food, water, and rest. You gotta remind yourself, you're just 160 pounds of goo in the middle of a very big universe. So whatever's burning you up right now, just know that it'll fade. Every problem feels big in the moment, but Gordon, you know better. So, focus on just being. You know, and try to look up from your computer every once in a while.
Hey guys, welcome to this what will be two-part episode related to a specific recording I did that went a bit longer. I'm just going to do a quick intro here before I offer a couple clips and then get into the main body. The couple of clips are a couple of favorite people of mine that I've used many times, and you know, relative to the world where we're in, you may be in a situation that seems completely paradoxical, and like everyone else seems to be doing well and you might be doing hard. You maybe have gone through a lot of shit in your life and everyone seems to have an easy path. To me, a lot of that challenge and stuff is preparation for how things are going to go when everyone else is struggling because they've never really been challenged. Don't feel bad for what others go through. There might be a big purpose of it. And as the clip relative to Enoch Crane says, is the quote relative to Rudolf Steiner is, "He who would create the new must endure the passing of the old in full tranquility." My intent based on this emotional mastery sort of theme is to, instead of giving away your emotional power, you recognize the life force content of it and reinvest it in yourself to excel and achieve your infinite. So I hope you enjoy these clips. I hope my perspectives offer you a new way to see you, and it's enormously validating of who you are, even though we're not codependent on validation. I hope you feel there's an algorithm of all that you've been through that's revealing itself, and when the going gets tough, you being the tough get going, and you're being activated and heightened, and the desire for more awareness and seeing, trying to get the data to see what is to unfold. You're being inspired to do that. So I talk about time as a variable in this that we can control, and investing into yourself and others to accelerate that might be the greatest ally now to get up to speed, because time is going to be very, very important, and what you do with your time and your life force will be one of the greatest allies you can control and you can master in yourself with so many variables you can't. So I hope you enjoy the clips, and I'll see you on the other side. Enjoy.
Welcome, Ramdas.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
It's a pleasure to be with you. You know, I think if we were to go right to the core of the issue, it strikes me that at the very bottom line, at the root of things, the spiritual premise is that we are all one, and therefore politically we would want to treat the whole world as if it were our own body, in a sense. That would seem to me to be the basic premise of spirituality and politics.
Well, yeah, but there are many levels to understand that. You can understand it with your intellect, and you can understand it because you are that, and that's a very different place to act politically. Yeah. It's like Mahatma Gandhi said, when you make yourself into zero, your power becomes invincible. Now, any politician or anybody in the life of trying to institute social change in a society would like to have their power be invincible. But it only happens when you aren't. But it is. And that's the one that is really hard, that you have to, in a way, die into not my but thy will for that kind of potential impact on social change.
I think there's a paradox there in a sense, because if we totally sort of bow to the will of God, it might lead us to not want to resist the current situation.
It's an incredibly interesting risk. And you've got to trust that when you have surrendered, you will hear so clearly. The Tao says the truth waits for eyes unclouded by longing. And your longing to have it different than it is ultimately a trap, because it keeps you from hearing the whole gestalt, the whole way things are. And as you hear the totality of it, you trust that out of that will come an appropriate action, a dharmic action. And that's the trust of Dharma. That's the trust in the wisdom of the universe that is greater than your own personal ego wisdom. So there is certainly an exquisite risk in it. Yeah. I mean, you know, we're so used to working out of I ought to do it, I should do it, getting behind ourselves and pushing. But the whole idea of trusting that if we didn't push, something would still happen is very interesting to explore in people.
Well, there must be a fine line between trusting and not pushing on the one hand, and on the other hand, being really passionate about social change.
But again, it's where passion comes from. If passion comes out of what I call milking the drama, or comes out of identifying with the emotions, I think it's short of what the possibility is. There is, for example, what's called dharmic anger, where a Zen monk will beat his student out of the incredible amount of love and compassion he has. I would say that if you're deeply enough in love with the universe, then the passion that arises out of it is different than if you aren't. And I think there's a passion that comes out of a joyful involvement in the universe. But I think it's the passion of a river or a tree. I don't think it has to be, very, that kind of, although it could be.
Well, you seem to be suggesting that the quality of one's actions in a political or social arena, or any arena for that matter, is really determined by internal factors, and that would make it, would seem to me, impossible to judge the actions of anyone else, even a Stalin or a Hitler.
I think it's pretty tricky business. I think you can make judgments about actions, that you don't judge beings, you judge their actions. And actions are good or evil in the sense that actions increase paranoia and separateness, or they increase unity. So you can judge actions and you can be opposed. I can say, I don't agree with that action you're going to do, and in fact I'm going to stop you from doing the action. But as Kabir said, do what you do with another human being, but never put them out of your heart. That if I have to harden my heart in order to oppose you, I lost. We both lost. And that's part of the art of the inner and the outer of dialogue.
Now, listen, the Quero make it very clear that we have to behave as though none of this is based in any kind of reality. We shouldn't have an attachment to this happening. We've got to focus on bringing about the changes that we want to see in the physical empirical material realm. And if we do that and we visualize, then the rest will unfold naturally. Rudolf Steiner made this observation. He said, "He who would create the new must be able to endure the passing of the old in full tranquility." This is why I said this morning, when I was talking about the stuff about having the food and the water and doing the stuff with any assets you got, the gold, it's so that you can free yourself. You don't have to worry about the foraging. You can free yourself to focus on the things that really matter. One of the positions that it's probably a good place to be right now is if you have nothing, you are in great shape. Because you have no attachment to anything. And I know it's a regurgitation of even more ancient wisdom, but as somebody once said, it is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for the rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. This is simply a reference to attachment. There's nothing wrong in having accoutrements. It only becomes a problem if there's an attachment to them. So one can argue that if you have nothing, you are relieved of that burden. If you have assets, there's nothing wrong in having them, there's nothing wrong in protecting them. But don't be too attached to them. Whilst we need them, great. But maybe we're coming to a time when we don't need them. I think this is a truly exciting period. It's a massively exciting period. And how did I find Alberto Villoldo initially? Because I was becoming aware that, we were going through an evolutionary process, and I came up with the term Homo luminous. And I thought, that's a good term. Wonder if anybody's ever thought of that. Googled it, Alberto Volodo, 20 years ago. Homo luminous? It's not the Illuminati. Homo luminous. It's access. It's the capacity to access the full range of our capability and capacity.
Hey guys, Andre Hodge, Seven of Truth, Infinite Potential Healing with you once more. And I want to welcome you, you mega friggin' epic galactic super soul, last Mimsy, crazy diamond, incredible being that is here, aware and willing to challenge yourself in this reality as it is and how it is, and probably also being triggered to take yourself to a whole new level. And because many variables of who you are finding a lot of nourishment in exploring material like this, or even more so if you feel you can gain something from me and benefit to be a component in this reality that Earth Mother, society, the universe needs right now. I allude to a lot of stuff which I don't think a lot of people are actually interpreting, nor are they interpreting how epic it is right now. And yeah, I would love to talk all about it. I have been sharing some stuff with people, so I hope you guys are benefiting from that and expanding who you listen to and what you're willing to comprehend and stuff. I've had an interesting couple of days. I was going to have a nice relaxing start to my week and just chill out a bit, do some of my basic life sort of things, and just have a quiet day and try and get away and disconnect from things a bit. And I was about to go and do that. And the weather has been really beautiful here. What I might actually do is show you some pictures of what it's like around my reality. In November down here, it's a really beautiful month, and we have these amazing trees from South Africa called jacarandas, and they're very abundant in the streets in my neighborhood and area and stuff. And what they do is in November they have these purple flowers, so the streets are all full of purple rain, literally. And so you walk the streets with the crystal blue skies and seeing the beautiful array of colors and vividness of things, and it's a very reassuring reminder that despite what is going on in our culture and our civilization as a species, it's about to unfold at a pretty epic level. Nature is thriving, and my attitude is, we all want to be one with nature, and this environment sort of theme is an aspect of our culture and stuff, but nature is flourishing. So the last few releases I've sort of talked about frequency and Infinite Potential Healing Part 3 and Emotional Mastery Part 1. So there is some sort of balance that we can have that we can benefit from. So nature is a teacher. So perhaps if we're feeling off relative to how things are, and nature is flourishing, and Earth Mother is the foundation of that, it'd be brave to sort of do a mathematical equation of what is in us that can be creating that, right? So information interpretation is a big thing of that. So like I said, I was trying to have a really relaxing start to my week and get into some physical stuff and get away and that, and I went and decided I've got a gravel driveway, and I walk barefoot on the gravel quite a bit because it's reflexology, it's good for the feet and connecting and stuff. And I went in our sun, and the sun is very potent, and just as I was about to go and do what I did, I got a pretty big, awesome sort of download interpretation of things just in my meditation contemplation, and the word set that I got was expansion mechanics, and it was like expansion mechanics. So I was like, I had to go into Van Wilder party liaison mode, and that's, write that down. If you haven't seen that movie, it's really, really funny. I used to love it. I haven't seen it for many years, but he would have this man servant walk around and take notes from him because he would get these inspirations and he'd go, write that down. So I had to write it down. I don't know what you're like, but for many years I've always kept a notepad, note folder with me in my backpacks wherever I go and stuff, because what I found is inspiration is pretty much constant, but the window of that inspiration can be very, very finite. So, and you can have it and it can be so loud and so pure and so powerful and potent. Then the next step, you can also totally go into goldfish mode and forget it, and you have a resonance of a feeling of what that sort of interpretation had for you, but you have a void of the gap of it not being there. And so what I've learnt to do is actually take a notepad down and be disciplined and thorough like that, and always have something like that with me, so when the inspiration comes, I make sure I get it down. So I've got thousands of files on my computer and stuff, and so the big thing about that, right, is if you get inspiration and then you record it, what you can do, you can have the luxury of forgetting it, right, if it happens. And I say luxury of forgetting because if you try and mentalize everything and you put the pressure on yourself to think that you have to remember it, that pressure can become the component that brings about its forgetting, right? So emotional interpretation of things can be the opposite of what the outcome is, right? So I'm contemplating putting this as emotional mastery part 2. I'm feeling the expansion mechanics and enhanced reality interpretation, and I'm feeling the expansion mechanics is a whole big unpacking of a whole theme, which I might get into as time goes on, whether from this point on, but I've pretty much been sitting with that expansion mechanics linguistical combination for 2 days and just trying to get into a state to actually express it in what I was getting, and also interpret it in a way that, you know, with my diagrams and stuff like that. So one thing I've always commented about or dropped quite a bit is an author by the name of Malcolm Gladwell, and what I'm going to do is just show you the book. And as you can see, there was a book called Tipping Point as well, which I forgot to mention. I haven't haven't read these in a long time, but Blink was the first one that I came across, and I remember watching the movie Firewall with Harrison Ford with Paul Bettany. It was really cool. I was an IT engineer at the time, and Harrison Ford was playing this chief security officer for a bank somewhere, and there was a extortion attempt by a group of criminals trying to get into the bank, sort of thing. And the comment was made in you know, back when you actually used to rent DVDs and stuff, they'd have extras, and there was an interview with Paul and Harrison, and what Harrison dropped was this book, right? And what he said was about, in the moment, interpreting and reacting to the information that you have. And the really cool thing about this book is the first sort of introduction. It talks about, gives this really interesting scenario, and I won't get into it, I'll leave it for you to work out, but it was about art and experts, right, that gained a statue, a Greek statue that from the particular age, and it's you know, how perfect it was, it didn't add up to them. And the art experts that were looking to purchase it, right, their gut was off, but the proof wasn't there, right? So there was a gut reaction, right, to the new information, but they didn't have the method to validate it or external validate it to align with their emotional interpretation, body reaction interpretation to the new variable that entered their frame of reference. And so yeah, it's very interesting. What he gets into, basically the scenario is 80% of the time our gut is right, but because the instant nature of that visceral reaction to new data, it can be bogged down to many things, such as and one really big component which I've sort of tried to instill in you if you've been here quite a while is that is the value component, right? So the entanglement with the money grid, all right, that's a fabric of our reality, a very subtle but absolute fabric of our reality going back into our DNA, like energy exchange, and value is a component that is an aspect of our lives and life, and going back generations and stuff. But so say if you get an instant reaction, and because you have no method to value it, what you can do is impose a value component, which is time and effort and energy to be thorough, right? Because who are we to interpret something and know it without an expert confirming it, or structure, or like peer review for medical sort of stuff, right? So if I show you an image that I've shown many times, so I've shown this many times before, but say the box is our 3D 5 sense acceptance, and we get a variable that doesn't fit within our box. The majority of humanity looks to self-impose the limits of what we accept and try and contort what we interpret within that frame set, right? There's a fascinating algorithm that goes on with people that gaining new data, right? Unless it fits within their realm, it's something that they can't integrate, right? And integration would mean an expansion of the constraints, all right, of what we accept, all right? So what I say in a lot of things is there's a life force investment requirement to add more information to what people accept, and that most people are running at quite a low volume of life force, all right? And I've made foundational component foundational concepts, part 2 and 3, about the life force, content, and the investment relative to change and stuff. So I invite you to go and explore them. I won't get into too much, but so if people are running on an absence of life force that their physical body requires to maintain function, then adding more data, all right, is a cost that they physically can't do. So there is this boxing into the reality, all right, of what is acceptable, and such as having heightened senses that go beyond the 3D 5 sense, all right, is something that really a lot of you here would love and be looking to want everything you have, but the majority of people, they really don't have the budget to engage that technology in their body, alright? So what they do is they self-impose their limits, right? And this is the image I do as a metaphor for infinite potential healing, because to gain that life force from somewhere, most people don't even know how they feel. They don't even want to know their technology working in the body, such as feeling they suppress it, let alone realizing that we can control our fate, so to think, and expand and be willing to accept new data and stuff. So expansion mechanics are a fascinating thing. You think humanity are logical and they all want improvement and they talk it up, but when the opportunity is right before them, most of them will go back and self-impose their limits, alright? Because they need a reference, like I've talked about in part 5 and 6 of multidimensional method to 3D madness. Like, when you have no reference, it's uncomfortable. And so the self-imposed limits are something most people do and they don't realize. So this is a drawing relative to the life force content investment in change requires. So I've shown this a bit. So if you just imagine you take more data on, a new concept, there's an energy cost, and it might give you a dip at the start, but then it gives you a rise because you the new awareness is a more efficient way to live, and you can keep going. Once you get that ball rolling, why stop? All right, it's infinite. So this is from the contrarian view release I did in the multidimensional method to 3D madness video, where relative to my currency trading days, what I learned, and I was totally invested in the herd, right? And then I lost a lot of money, and I realized, like, reverse engineering why I failed was I interpreted the reality totally wrong. I didn't know things like the Federal Reserve and quantitative easing and the globalization of interconnected banking system, and everyone is interacted and interrelated. So when someone big has an issue, everyone else is affected. I thought if the US was having problems in 2008, the world would isolate and quarantine them. But in actual fact, it brought everyone else down, and so I lost a lot of money. So what I learned to do is appreciate the herd, but then also be the trader. That's where I went into currency trading and stuff. Is what you realize is how we're sort of educated and brought up into the reality is it's just a expression of interpretation of the reality. What I'm doing in this video is enhanced interpretation relative to the expansion mechanics, right? And so the way you have to live is potentially have the contrarian variable ready to go anytime and contemplate all angles, alright? So with the trader, when things are peaked or when things are troughed, you realize that the energy to go in a certain trend, there's a finite volume of energy and interpretation, because when things are really bad, alright, it takes a lot more energy for things to keep going bad. So say the falsehood of the reality, it's a huge investment, right? Huge investment of energy and components and variables and individuals and all that to be aligned with that. The truth is actually extremely efficient, right? So say that's where we're at. The herd is believing it, but the traders in us, the contrarians, and I'm not going to use another C word, are seeing a different outcome, right? And as with the trough, right, it takes a while for the trend to change, but the traders can actually sense a shift. And what I'm sort of suggesting is contrarian people have their gut, like the metaphor of the Malcolm Gladwell book, interpreting things in a different way. It's funny, when I was trading, alright, a lot of the times I was actually very, very much ahead of the curve. And when you're on your own and isolated and peerless, and so say you're a reality contrarian, alright, so you're interpreting things, but everyone else is like the herd and they're going a different way. What it can feel is, if you're codependent on validation and being in a collective and all those sort of things, they can actually, you can acquiesce into them and give your power away and perception, because it actually feels very comfortable being in the herd, right? So, interpreting things and living by it and then honoring what you're getting over the vast majority is actually an incredibly demanding early on state to exist in, right? But it is absolutely a variable relative to expansion mechanics, right? You can't be an information follower and herd engager. You have to be a self-actualizer and independent operator in information, and you have to govern your state relative to data and stuff, because interpreting things at a very high level, such as the stuff I've been doing, say for instance, I hope you've invested the time into Galactic Special Forces Part 9 and Next Level Compassion, because perhaps you're like in charge of your reality and doing all those sort of missions, and you should be able to rely on people around you, but you actually realize you can't, right? We want to be able to trust and people being able to interpret us and stuff, but the expansion mechanic requirement is to realize that you actually can't. Alright, so I'll just show you another image. So say this is all the data that's out there, all the information sets, and I've shown this before in early on in the Incarnation War series. People might accept the narrow bandwidth. They might have this stream is what people accept. It's like a sort of dial-up connection of the reality and information, whereas the very broad volume out there is, in any moment of time, perception can have a component relative to the volume of data you're willing to interpret at any unit of time, alright? So when you've got very advanced reality interpretation, alright, and this video is about enhanced reality interpretation, what in any second, any moment of time is being able to absorb all the variables at play to give you the most accurate algorithm, alright? So what I'm going to do here in this video, the purpose being is to actually offer you some perspectives that I've found relative to things that I have engaged in who I am to enhance what I consider my ability to interpret the reality, right? And it comes down to basically you got to recognize all the variables that you can control, right, and master them individually, and recognize their components into your perception interpretation and the algorithm of what you're getting, all right? Because we can't control everything, all right? And you wouldn't want to control everything. In the variables in yourself, you want to be proactive in your interpretation, but the variables that you can't control, you want to be passive and employ and make sure you've got self-mastery going. So the variables that pop up that you can't control are easier to operate with. Say if reality and disasters or huge things which involve other people, alright? There's a bit of a grey line whether it's family and all that sort of stuff, obviously, but what I've been trying to instill in everyone is own your power, you're number one, alright? And it's time to be spiritually selfish because you can't assume people are going to people are going to look after you the way you care and nurture for them and look after them, alright? A lot of people are deficient on energy and they have agendas, and what you might be doing is actually rewarding behavior that they need to drop, and when you're not doing that, it forces them to engage their technology and their abilities or fall apart and shatter and then rebuild themselves. So what I'm suggesting in this time, give less weight to those around you. You're not totally responsible for anyone other than your own thoughts, feelings, emotions, as Emotional Mastery Part 1 was about, right? Or a component of it was, I offered the relative to the Michael Design lecture. So when it comes to reality, this is another drawing I haven't shown for a while. It's like an upside down iceberg of the vastness of what is out there, alright? So a default mode we need to operate in is expansion, and so the expansion allows us to interpretate more of what is out here that doesn't necessarily conform to the global narrative or reality mechanics or how we've been educated or the peers or family or community we're in accept, alright? But in order to navigate it, those sort of constraints aren't going to be adequate enough to endure potentially what's about to unfold. So while there's a huge challenge and uncertainty going on in the reality, those people, such as I've shared with my journey in the metaphor, there's a lot out there that have been through a lot of shit, literally, that has prepared them to be tough when the going gets tough, you know? That has set each of us up, as I said in the previous video about the Mystery School of Life, right? Galactic Special Forces Part 9, I highly recommend it. That our own individual journeys, which I love talking to people about theirs and how they've navigated them in the sessions and stuff. And the genius is that those of you that are here to be able to contemplate these things, right? And you have to own it. You are a reality genius for getting to this point and being able to accept expansion is a possibility for you when most of the people are governed by self-imposed limits, alright? What I'm trying to do is enhancement mechanics will be an enormous ally, alright? And it's not necessarily defined by what I say and stuff. You might have your own interpretation of it, of those linguistics. Enhanced reality interpretation based on expansion mechanics will be to me, in my journey, it's going to be a fundamental of who I am. Like, I just share my experiences and journeys and stuff with the intent to shortcut a lot of you to not go through the shit that I went through in order to learn what I learned. As great as you think, or as great as maybe it's perceived that I am and stuff, what I'm doing is offering all the freaking hard lessons I've been through to demonstrate how humble and how asleep I was. I needed a loud alarm clock of life destruction and compromised individuals doing all misguided shit to wake me up, right? And I'm here now, owning my power and on top of my game right when it's needed, and being in a state to perceive that expansion mechanics sort of, variable that integrated into me, whether I got a download from the sun or the earth, or actually Hollow Earth is like the Hollow Earth Guardians is sort of stepping up. So Hollow Earth has been a quite interesting theme because there is a peak falsehood pushback going on, right? So I've got some drawings, some new drawings. So this is an interesting one. So this is a mechanics of expansion, alright? Expansion mechanics, simple drawing, alright? So say the bottom one down here is, say, default mode, and then we come across some new data that we contemplate that expands what we previously accepted, alright? So it gives us a vaster vista of interpreting things going forward. So then we get more, alright? And we keep expanding. So the outcome is the window or the vista of interpretation becomes broader because we're willing to accept more variables in our algorithm, alright? So this is another interpretation of the default mode, alright? So this is an appreciation of where a lot of people are at, okay? Because you might be very, very proactive on your expansion mechanics. You've gone through journeys and appreciate that from the humble space that the vastness of what we don't know is absolute, and the finite nature of what we do know is profound compared to that. So expansion is the only logical outcome, alright? What happens with the majority of people, and this is like a metaphor of that boxing in the 3D 5 cents, is the majority of people have a justification in their mechanics of actually self-imposing the limits, alright? Whether it's the information streams that they accept that give them falseness, alright? So these little variables that are out there, like that are imposing the limit, the areas at the top of the absolute of all there is, alright? So it could be trauma, or the global narrative and the media and all that, or false teachers, or life situations that result in the fact that they can't, or their body has a limit of the energy that they can expand with, because expansion has a cost, whether it's you invest money into a healer to remove the blocks, to accelerate, alright, which saves you a lot of time, or there's a life force investment of actually discerning, alright, and which takes a lot more time, alright. So investing in a healer is an accelerated path from my perspective. That's why I've done so much, alright, and that's why I encourage it, alright. You don't know what you don't know, okay? So when you come into the energy field of a healer and stuff, and I'm not saying just me, you've probably got healers around you, a lot of people go into a fear of the unknown, alright, but that's the shadow at play, and I might be overshowing the image of the shadow self relative to Michael Tsarian's work here. And in the shadow is the unknown, and the unknown can be traumas, blocks, ancestral karma, all that sort of stuff, right? But what I'm wanting to do is invite you, alright, to interpret that, from the emotional perspective of the body and the body technology that you interpret as emotional, might actually be a conformational experience, a conformational body technology engagement of trying to have a dialogue with yourself. Like, feelings are a massively misunderstood variable in our society. So what I'm like, if I'm incorporating this expansion mechanics into emotional mastery part 2, which is most likely what I'm going to be doing, it's because I'm trying to enhance reality interpretation via your emotional body technology, alright? And as I said in emotional mastery part 1, a lot of us are wired incorrectly relative to our culture. Like in Australia, self-love is potentially seen as egotistical, where we self-impose our limit of self-love, you know. So that's one thing that I sort of went through growing up, sort of thing, alright? Whether it's my culture, my family situation, or the structure of our society, like peer group in school and stuff. So there can be a fascinating number of justifications to self-impose a limited perspective on the reality in our lives, right? Despite there being a vast amount out there to know, alright? So it's very, very courageous to actually contemplate that I might be self-imposing limits. There might be enormous amount that I don't know about, even about me. And what I'm saying is the variables about that we can master about ourselves. The outsiders we can't necessarily control all the time. We might be in the soul contract to be in an accident, an experience, or in a relationship to have outcomes and stuff like that. You know what I mean? There's so many variables at play. But the ones we can control, like your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and like the willingness to explore and dedicate time to information, alright? Like most of my videos are quite long, and there's an interpretation in the reality that, like, most people can focus on about 20 minutes, alright? Well, I can tell you in psychic stamina and psychic defense, there's no like Fred Flintstone lunchtime bells to go and have a break, alright? Everyone puts their tools down and psychic attacks don't stop. As I've shown in other diagrams, particularly in the Galactic Special Forces Part 9, is that when the forces are working at a multi-dimensional level, there is no time, where time is imposed on us, and what we can master in that reference is our psychic stamina. So from my perspective, actually being able to focus and listen to sort of teachings for an extended period of time are absolutely allies in psychic stamina, alright? The ability to focus at high level information for an extended period of time has a beneficial outcome to your psychic stamina, alright? So I make no apologies for making my videos long, alright? So I'm just going to stop the video, because when I get to a certain length, they create a new file, alright? And it has a bit of a gap, so I'm just going to stop this. Hey guys, Andre Hodge, 7 to Truth, Infinite Potential Healing. Just a round out of the first part of this video. I said at the end there, I make no apologies for making videos long. So I'm going to be my own hypocrite here and actually cut this one a bit shorter. Both parts of this main recording about 40 minutes each, so what I'm going to do is just break them up relative to that break that I mentioned and create 2 out of it. So I hope you gained a lot from this first part. It will expand more in the second part. I'm not sure when I will release the second part. I might do it midweek, because I might make the intent to actually offer a bit more, getting a lot of concepts and stuff, and it's a really potent time at the moment, so we'll see what happens. I may leave it to next weekend, like I usually release them at the one time and stuff. So if you've gained a lot out of this, thank you. And if you hold out for that, then we'll see what happens. Keep an eye out on the channel and Facebook and stuff like that. But what I want to do is actually add some of the other pearls of wisdom of the other people that I share related to the videos I offer. And yeah, it's emotional mastery is a very interesting thing, and the expansion mechanics, what I'm trying to do is offer variables for people to consider that they can reflect on themselves and realize perhaps there's components you've integrated over the years that are no longer applicable to now. And one of the cool clips that I've offered or may offer is related to Ian R. Crane, where he talks about Rudolf Steiner. So I might offer that at the end of he who would create the new must endure the passing of the old in full tranquility. So my intent with the emotional mastery sort of theme is to recognize that it is a variable that we can control in ourselves. There's a lot in this world that we can't control, but my attitude is that if we can master the things that we can master, then it makes the things that are unpredictable or uncertainty or that we can't control manageable in the moment. So it's always been an ally to me. And another part I just want to add to this first part at the end, because I think I included it in the second part, was over my weekend, depending how much you've paid attention and listened, and I haven't made a big effort to say what I've been doing, but early November I had a follow-up chat with Angela Miller, so I hope you're paying attention to her, and those of you that have explored her someday her sort of clearance healings that she does, I hope you're benefiting a lot from them. She's epic. And you know, pranic healing I did on her, because what I have to do these days is basically, if I interact with people that I haven't healed, I have to basically do healings just to protect myself. And she's epic. She's been through a lot and stuff. And doing the pranic healing on her, I came through that Earth sort of gave me the green light to do pranic healings on the whole planet, alright, which is pretty epic. And so Earth Mother herself came in and had dialogue with us, and she was pretty funny, and it was really cool. And so when I'm in a good state, what I do is as a part of what I do healings on the whole planet now. To me, it's the metaphor of Empire Strikes Back, when Yoda was trying to teach Luke and you know, take the X-Wing out of the swamp, where Luke couldn't believe it, you know what I mean? He had the self-imposed limit in his belief system that it was impossible to lift an X-Wing out of a swamp because of the scale and size. But my attitude is it's about our life force. We're infinite potential. We can do anything we want. It's just a matter of what we allow ourselves and give ourselves permission to operate at. And my attitude is we are the frickin' last resort galactic mimsies, crazy diamonds, Frodos. To be here and aware in the unawareness realm, as I call it, is an enormous privilege with the shit going on, alright? And I don't give a fuck, alright? I got dilly gaff about that. So basically I've been doing, when my energy is good, I will do that. Like when I'm not going to do it as a martyr, like, oh, I've got this shit to do, Earth's in trouble and stuff. Earth is fucking not in trouble. She's so powerful. Like, it's taken millions of years and destructions after destructions and compromise and attacks and all that, and she's still here. She's in control, and honestly I feel like the Hollow Earth defenders are sort of stepping up as well, and that's what's been going on. It's a bit like a like a basketball game, if you've ever played it, like when you're in defense, alright, and I played a lot of basketball growing up, is that what you can do is in defense you can put pressure on the offensive team, so you can do a full court press, so you make their situation uncomfortable, alright, to create a fumble and a turnover and a steal and then get an easy basket and stuff. So my attitude is right now the defense is like a full court press, and truth and awareness is that full court press, alright? So I've had a theme of the Hollow Earth sort of defenders sort of coming through quite a few of the epic beings, and I realised a lot of the path has sort of been on is like quite misguided and stuff, and so the smashings and all that have been preventing all that, in my opinion. So now it's like I've recalibrated, I've been going and hitting the books and stuff, and with teachers and components that I've known and stuff, and so now byproduct of all that, of me returning myself to my core and mastering my emotions and all that sort of shit, doing like walking the talk of everything I say. And I'm not perfect, alright? I love the expansion of healing and finding more angles and making mistakes, like I say, and like recalibrating to what like my infinite potential and keep expanding. So yeah, basically a lot of the political centers, I'm just pranic healing them up. So my attitude with pranic healing, alright, is see our bodies, where I see us as a metaphorical David, alright? Like Michelangelo, when he was carving the marble, he didn't see the blocks in the way, he saw David, and the debris was just obstacles to get to the David. So my metaphor is the human body is like the galactic Davids of energy and potential, and so Earth Mother is the same. So all I do is I just clear the shit out the way to let her be who she is and get the energy from the universe and stuff, and return her to a natural state, so that affects the grid and stuff. So I do the North Pole Aurora Borealis and South Pole, where the soul migrations come, and the main political areas around the world that have been affected, because the West is under attack, if you don't know it. We're being culturally destroyed from the inside out to soften us up for whatever is to come, alright? And it's diabolical what's going on, alright? So that's where I'm doing this emotional mastery series, to get you to trust your instincts. And like I said, in the contrarian view aspect is you might be ahead of the curve and you might be seeing it, and a lot of us sort of have a subtle codependency on validation of a herd mentality and crowd. And what I'm saying is, perhaps you're like a head of the crowd and you're seeing it, and you're just like, you got to own that, own what you've come to the conclusion of, right? And anchor it, and anchor that truth, and be your protection, right? Falsehood, like the favorite quote I have is by Thomas Cooper, is fear and falsehood dread investigation, truth invites it. So bring it, like let's do thorough exploration. Like when people have disagreements, ask for all the dates, all the data, all the evidence and all that, get both sides of all the arguments. And expansion mechanics is removing the emotional sort of baggage and co-attributes of every sort of aspect of data that comes to you. Say you read the Bible and it has a lot of emotional baggage because people have preconception to it and all that. I don't read that sort of stuff, but I'm just saying, you know, you can sense all the stuff you bring into it rather than just read the words in the moment and stuff, right? Perhaps the Bible's a bad view, whatever's been put out into the narrative and stuff. Just feel like once you get under emotional mastery, feel the loaded emotional content with everything you watch and stuff. You can feel it. There's information is weaponized, right? So yeah. So I don't want to make this too long. So with the components that I add and stuff like that, it will be quite a rounded out sort of teaching again. So yeah, at the start I didn't add too much. I went straight into it, but I want to add a bit more clips at the end. So I want to thank you for watching this. I hope you enjoy the clips outside of the teaching, and I hope you gain a lot from it, and I hope you integrate a new level in yourself. And yeah, time to own it, guys. Like, trust what you get. Like, be an independent operator, and you don't need validation, nor do you need to contribute to the validation of others, but be passive in interacting with the people, because there's a lot of polarity and a lot of resistance to accepting what is going on, and maybe you're the only one that gets it. So it can be a lonely and isolated place in the awareness right now, but as I've said, to me, it's peak falsehood time, and the tide is going to be washing out of all the truth and all the falsehood and stuff, and yeah, it's going to be interesting. Thanks for finding me. Thanks for watching this. I hope you gained something from it. And if you're seeking me out, you know, www.servantoftruth.org, and access to me is how you get to me, and I've got it written up there. So thanks, guys. See you next time. Andre out. Lots of love.
The last question I have is to make this shift in humankind, I guess, easier on more people. What would your suggestion be?
Well, they're gonna go through it anyway, whether they like it or not. Whatever new world order that's going to exist, in whatever form it's going to exist, is going to be very short-lived. What to make it easy for people in general, I guess the best advice that I could give is learn how to become calm and centered within yourself. Understand that social consciousness operates from the first three structural areas of the brain, okay, involving security, sensation, power, and fear.
Oh, our amphibian brain, so to speak.
The reptilian brain is the
reptilian
first
brain,
part, right?
Thank you.
So if you can really get rid of the idea of fear and become more conscious and aware, sure, you're going to do it on a cultural level. You're going to do it on a political level. You're going to understand what's going on around you. But that's the first step. The second step is to become more conscious, to become a conscious being, to get out of this sleeping thing.
So we're all trying to become more than human, basically. That's what's happening.
No, you see, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience.
What are we?
We're spiritual beings having a human experience.
It's a whole different directional.
Indeed. You can engage the social drama to whatever level that you wish. In other terms, it's a game. Okay? It's a learning experience. And through your experience, you gain wisdom, which doesn't have a polarity. And from that, you gain your personal truth. Okay? Everybody wants to know what's disinformation, what's true, what's not true. And you know, what people believe. Don't believe anything. You know, beliefs have nothing to do with experience. If you experience something, then you know it. There's a big difference there. If you believe believe something, you can be manipulated. You know.
But I guess you have the experience, and then you're going to need to interpret it somehow. You're going to need to make reference to it. You're going to need to understand it.
And that's part of the deal, because when you're trying to interpret the experience, what do you interpret it with? You interpret it with previous experience. And that previous experience is loaded with predispositions, beliefs, conflicting beliefs,
baggage.
A whole bunch of baggage.
Mm-hmm.
And things out there, and this might seem kind of a strange way of saying it, things out there have absolutely no meaning except the meaning that you give it. So, I mean, two people could look at something. One says it's good, one says it's ugly, one says it's Republican, one says it's Democrat. But it isn't any of that. It simply is. And
so
the meaning you project out on it, you have to understand how consciousness works. And if people really understood who they were They wouldn't do what they do to each other. And that's why everything political, all this political stuff on that level is really a no thing in the end. I mean, what is voting? Go out and vote. What's vote? What is voting? Voting is saying, govern me. There's no provision made in this culture for people to become autonomous.
I guess you have to go figure out a way to do it on your own. That's true autonomy, then.
It's happening already. If a planet is in unity consciousness, it doesn't need a government, per se.
Or at least a very different one. Scott, does that answer your questions, and do you have any others?
Oh, I got millions of questions.
Go ahead. Ask a couple more. It's fine.
The last guest that was on was basically saying that a lot of the social ills that are happening in our world today are experientially there to teach us lessons of some type.
Wisdom.
And I'm exactly at that same point also, that, and that's what you're saying, I think, also, that you can't learn anything without an experience of it.
Yes.
So I was wondering if you would comment on that.
People very often get tied up in the idea of good and bad, positive and negative. But what they're there for, being part of one thing, is for timing. The timing is always perfect. Push ahead, retard, push ahead, retard.
Or you could say
timing factors.
They say that's how we walk. You know, one foot rests while the other one moves, and that one rests while the other one moves.
Yeah, the difference on a cultural, political level between the idea of positive and negative is that positive acknowledges the whole being value of self and spirit, if you will. The negative polarity attempts to replace that with ego aggrandizement, okay, for security, sensation, and power. And that's exactly what all the media and all the cultural programming and everything circulates around, is aggrandizement of the ego or the alter ego. And
that's what Verne says. It's just feeding on its own pathology. It's just perpetrating the pathology.
And yes, and deep down inside, people know, they know something's wrong. They have an essence. They suspect certain things, but having no other reference point, they're not willing to make that little leap. They shouldn't be afraid to make that leap. They are the path, you know. They have more in common than they suspect. You know, consciousness is the name of the game, not politics.
Well, then what's stopping people? A lot of people aren't being stopped, and the paradigm shift is, you know...
Because they have fear. They're basically culturally conditioned and...
Well, by the name of your book, you would assume that you believe that we have a little help in maintaining fear, having a little encouragement from outside.
Yes. From part of the negative hierarchical structure, yes.
Perpetrating itself just in its own dynamics?
Yes. I mean, they're trying to cause as many unaligned people to align themselves in that direction, to supply more energy to that resonance, as it were. But that resonance is self-defeating.
Is it a conscious situation on their part, or is it just part of the dynamics of that mindset?
It's a perfectly conscious situation on their part. Mm-hmm. And, you know, you really have to understand what the positive-negative hierarchy thing is all about. You really need to understand what that's about, what the idea of positive and negative conceptually is about, while you're viewing everything dualistically, in order to really understand what unity means. Okay? You can only see in other people what's in you, otherwise you wouldn't recognize it.
Right, no point of reference. Okay.
Yeah. And so when these people are out here and they're, you know, a lot of people that come across things, they just don't want to hear anything. They don't want to hear about anything because they're afraid. They don't have any other reference point. If they don't have the social, cultural consciousness thing, they don't have anything. Because the faction that wants to control and manipulate identifies with control and manipulation. And if it doesn't have that, it doesn't have identity.
Okay.
Okay, and it doesn't want to lose identity.
So that's why you see polarization happening. I mean, to me, I see the one paradigm happening and a lot of growth in that direction, but at the same time, you see the old guard squeezing even tighter, hanging on even tighter.
And it's happening now because we're approaching the end of this 26,000-year period. We're going into a major shift for the planet as well, but for all the entities on this planet into a different octave. now they're starting to be faced on those levels with the reality of what's really going on. And so now there are a lot of power struggles on a lot of levels grappling at this particular moment.
I mean, some of the people are getting it and some aren't, and so there's a lot of internal conflict about what to do.
There's a lot of internal conflict.
So they might just implode from within.
Well, I mean, they've set themselves up for that, haven't they?
Well, if they're really getting it and they're going, well, consciousness is the key here, you know, why aren't they out in some yoga classes and why aren't they out,
well, I mean, that's
you know,
the
doing
fallacy
light
of it.
therapy?
I mean,
and
the Army was, the Army and training the Psi Corps, I mean, they've got equipment that they've got alternate reality generators. They can carry around a suitcase and pull a switch and step over to the next star system.
Actually,
they've got
yoga's
technology
kind of
that you wouldn't believe. But they were training the Psi Corps to go and do a lot of different things for military purposes, and they discovered that, you know, the more conscious these people came, the less they wanted to do all the nasty, dirty work. You know, so I mean, it's
that's the effect of higher states of consciousness.
Yeah, it's self-defeating for a negative alignment.
I always thought about that. I always thought that, you know, if you really knew the gifts of the universe, you couldn't possibly go out and be an evil person.
Well, you'd
by
be
the
doing
very
it
knowledge
yourself
of it.
In the end, yes.
Yeah, but the very knowledge of it, it would be transforming so that you would be aligned with the implicate order. It would be transforming you aligned to that. So how could you maintain a different mindset? Otherwise, you wouldn't be getting that.
Yeah, it is kind of a quandary for the other side, yeah.
So everything I've done, like the Galactic Special Forces, all that, it's in the algorithm of my Akashic record and my frequency and my DNA and all that sort of stuff. So it's there. So it's like I'm a codex of codes and stuff. So whatever code the individual needs, they get, sort of thing. Whatever's the right time of their journey and stuff in their consciousness Tetris. And this information, it's funny, it's from my perspective, I'm giving you the answers at the end of the like, say, math book and stuff, and I don't know if schools use books anymore, but they used to give us textbooks with the answers in the end, and you weren't meant to cheat. But because I'm giving you the answers on many things, it probably won't make sense because you don't have the context, because to understand the context, you do have to go through that consciousness Tetris, and I might be overlaying an image of a competition of Tetris, so you get, like, unless you get the right blocks for the lower levels, you're not going to comprehend this sort of stuff, and that's all cool. Trust me, the discovery process is awesome here, all right? It's one of the gifts we have in this unawareness realm, and that. So I love that journey of discovery. It's such a gift to get new realizations, and you get that level clear, and then you see things from a totally different perspective, and I love that shift that you get, especially when you're wrong, all right?
John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And That's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. That we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.